What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School, the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. I've got a podcast audit jam session happening here with my pod pal Bobby from Nomagicbullet. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
All right, let's dive in. Let's set a little bit of a goal, man. Over the next 6 months, what would you like to see happen with your show and with your brand?
Well, I like to see all the work that I do with downloads and having guests socialize this thing, them turning into opt-in subscribers. So once I get my tax status, I can solicit donations for my not-for-profit mental health media company.
Okay. So we're talking overall brand growth, but more specifically download growth, but even more specifically email list growth. Does that sound about right?
Right.
Okay, cool. And tell us a little bit about your show. Like, what is the topic of the show and who should be listening? Who's the ideal listener?
The ideal listener is anybody that is interested in whether it's their immediate nuclear family or somebody they know, listening to tools from lived experience people that have dealt with mental health. So it can be male, female, it can be any age, but obviously it's people that are interested in mental health.
Okay. And so the name of your show is Nomagicbullet. Is that the full name, or do you have anything extended out of that? Is that the entire name?
That's the entire name of the show. There is no magic bullet. It's just hard work, practice, patience, and persistence in trying to deal with mental health.
Okay. Now, one idea that I think would help you tremendously with growing your downloads and getting the right audience listening in, the term mental health is a great discoverability term. It's a great search word in the podcasting world. I had one client that she started out doing in less than 100 downloads per episode, had a name that did not have the word mental health in it. We put the word mental health in there, and she did over 100,000 downloads in the next 12 months. So I would definitely look at putting the phrase mental health on the title line of your show, to where it could be, and if it's the first part of the title, it's more powerful, but you can put it in there anywhere. So it could be mental health tips, Nomagicbullet, or Nomagicbullet : mental health tips. Or if you wanted to extend that out even more, that could work as well.
Okay, so listen, it's actually branded as Nomagicbullet, an honest discussion on mental health. But when I listed it with Spotify and with Apple, the person that listed it for me listed it as Nomagicbullet. So clearly I should relist it as Nomagicbullet, an honest discussion on mental health.
Yes,
I don't know how to do that, because it's already, I've got 28 episodes as Nomagicbullet.
Yeah.
So how do I do that?
Yeah, super easy. So you host inside of Spotify, formerly known as Anchor.
Yep, Spotify. Well, I do Buzzsprout, and it goes to Spotify, Apple. And
Okay.
It did go to Google before, but now it's going to go to YouTube, right?
So you're in Buzzsprout, even better. So that's a huge upgrade. All right. So you're going to want to log into Buzzsprout, and there'll be a tab that just says like settings or podcast, or it's the basic podcast settings tab.
Yeah.
And you'll click on that, and you'll see that's where you can change the art of the show if you wanted to, the description, but there'll be a title line. Yeah. And that's where Nomagicbullet is listed. And that's where you just edit that, hit save, and it'll update everywhere. And it's
including the past 28 episodes that I've done?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So that I know it's called Nomagicbullet, an honest discussion on mental health, and that's what the moniker says too.
Yeah. And do you have Nomagicbullet all smushed together as one word in the title, or I think it would help? It would help if you made those individual words. I think that would help a lot too.
Well, the problem is that Nomagicbullet is also a site on venereal disease.
Okay.
On not for podcasting, but for Google.
Yeah. Okay.
So That's a challenge.
That's a challenge. Yeah, that's that. So that, I think just adding the word mental health in there will help quite a bit. So
Okay, well,
that's
I had already decided to do that, and after I met you, I decided that I'm going to try to listen to some of your advice, and hopefully, I mean, the goal, Adam, is to engage you as a coach once I get some money, and that's going to come from tax donations. I've
yeah,
already raised money as without tax donate receipts for a documentary, so I'm good at doing that.
good, good. So let's shift our strategy here to building that email list and turning, as your downloads grow from updating the name and all that stuff. Now we got good people flowing in there. How do we get them to opt in to your email list?
Right.
So let's start on the kind of the back edge of that. So when they do opt into your email list, are you sending a weekly newsletter? What kind of value are they getting if they are actually on your email list?
Right now they just get a notice of the next episode.
Okay. Okay. So I think this is something that you want to work on, because okay, I'll use myself as an example. If I'm on somebody's website or anything, I will never, if they have a box that says, hey, just subscribe to our newsletter, I'll never do it, because I want something for my
Value. I
email.
know. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Target
So
magneters.
we'll discuss that. But then if I just get generic emails from them, it's just, if I only get promotional emails and there's no education, there's no something extra, there's no, it's just like promote, I'll unsubscribe 100% of the time. So we have to, with the value that you're providing, you want to have something else that keeps your subscribers subscribed, or you'll lose subscribers, or your open rate will really not be good. Which, if you work really hard to get 1,000 people on your email list, but you've got a 2% open rate, then that's a problem. So I think it's okay to promote your episodes, but like, I'm a big fan of the weekly newsletter format where, and you can have fun with it. Like, do you enjoy writing? Do you enjoy, like,
Yeah.
the written word? And it seems like you're a creative guy.
So here you go. I have a newsletter, a weekly newsletter that's been going for 172 weeks and has over 500 subscribers. And it's called 5 Monday Moments. And there is my target magnet, because I even have, validation and quotes where people just love it. Like they just look forward to it and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I already have that, but it's not at part of this podcasting business.
Yeah.
Just to go back, I started a fly fishing business blog called Fly Fishing Blog, because I'm a fly fisherman.
Okay.
I was selling swag, and I had people listening to my podcast, to my reading my newsletter, and then somebody talked me into print on demand, because the swag that I had to inventorize, and I didn't get to play pool for 3 years on my pool table because it was full of inventory. So then I started a business called Sunset Bob, which was print on demand, which was sunsets for mental health. And between those two companies, or those two brands, I've got this email list that people look forward to, but I don't ask them for anything. I just give them 5 things, and it's on my Fly Fishing Bob blog. I mean, do you have the capability of doing a screen share, and I can just show you one?
Well, I mean, we can do that offline, since we're doing a podcast and it's
Okay.
all audio. But
Okay,
I mean,
so
I think
I have a magnet which is called 5 Monday Moments. It's really good stuff, and so I have that. So how do I integrate that with this podcast? Because I'll tell you something. I already promote the podcast on the newsletter, and I don't get very many subscriptions. And the people that I send out to the monthly newsletter from the podcast are already on the podcast and already subscribed. So
right.
the goal, I guess, is to get those 500 people that are watching me every week to subscribe to it, but they already have 5 Monday moments.
Right. Well, so we've got them. And the reason I like to start with like what value are we delivering via email first is because that we have to work backwards from that. Because if we don't have that, then people won't stay on your list. So I think taking this 5 Monday moments thing and making it the newsletter that's attached to the podcast, because then, like you said, that can be your lead magnet. Get this newsletter. We do 5 Monday moments. Here's what it's about. Have some of those quotes of people that are like, that are loving the newsletter. You can kind of quote them on the page where they opt in, all that. So now we've got the deliverable. It's a weekly thing, and we can promote that on your website, on your podcast. Hey, 5 Monday moments, shout, make sure you grab the link in the show notes and join my 5 Monday moments newsletter. And you can just copy and paste it from the blog into your newsletter format. But then also promote the latest episode. Like that's totally okay too. So you got your 5 Monday moments, and maybe one of them relates to the podcast. That would be even like that'd be so that's perfect. So
there's a section in there called "What's in Your Toolbox," and over the 4 weeks, it promotes the episode. Then it re-promotes it. Then it does something in the toolbox: baking tools. Baking, fly fishing, gardening, mindfulness, and then it hits them with the upcoming episode.
Perfect. So the way our discussion so far could potentially work is that, all right, we put the word mental health in the name of your show. Subscribership goes up, listener base increases. On your upcoming episodes, you're promoting your new newsletter and opt in. So now new listeners become new email list participants and new readers and then you're nurturing them with your weekly emails and with your weekly podcast episodes. And they're like, oh, this is, Bobby is my person. I'm consuming his written content. I'm consuming his audio content. And then when you are ready for your nonprofit and you're looking for donations and things like that, you've got this captive audience that now is growing and they're engaged. Like that's how I see this all potentially working. So what questions do you have about kind of gluing all that together?
All right. Well, right now, I don't know the exact number, but I would say of the 120 that are already opted in on the website, maybe 80% of them are already on both. So the 5 Monday moments to them wouldn't be of value. Now, the reality is that every time I do a show, then I have guests and I pre-qualify them to make sure that they're going to share it through their social media. And when they share it and people listen to it, they have to, if they listen to it on Spotify or they listen to it on Apple, they're not going to see the link to opt in. They have to go to my website. And then when they get to my website, then they can subscribe.
Yeah. And I would make sure you verbally instruct people on where to go to within the show, within the interviews, and be like, hey, this episode's brought to you by my 5 Monday moments newsletter. Make sure you go to blah to go and grab that. So verbally just describing the audio, just because show notes are different on every single platform. You never know what you're going to get. But if you just have a nice, clear audio call to action, that'll definitely help.
Well, I should change my outro and to include that.
It could, or you just mention it, like just, on the fly at the end when you're doing the interview. It's just, I call that a casual call to action, and you're just in the moment. Or if they, maybe during the interview, this is the optimal situation. During the interview, the guest says something and it's a topic that you talk about all the time in your Monday moments. And you're like, oh, this is a great reminder. We talk about this all the time on my Monday newsletter. If you guys are not subscribed to it, go to blah, go and grab it, and then just jump right back into the conversation. So just like you look for opportunities to bring that up. So I do that all the time when I've got a new lead magnet. When I first created my podcast growth scorecard, anytime I was doing an episode where I'm discussing podcast growth, it's like, okay, I'm going to drop a little casual call to action in here and remind people about this thing, even though I've got a pre-recorded intro and outro where I mention it, but chances are a lot of people skip right through that. So,
okay. So I've got on On the podcast, I have probably 100 downloads per episode. And of those 100 downloads, they come from the guests socializing it, sending it to their connections. And then I put the Buzzsprout link on there. And I also put the Nomagicbullet link.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, if they hit the Buzzsprout link, they just listening to it. And there's all they would do is hear me say, hey, by the way, 5 Monday moments. If they hit the website link, then they go there, they can listen to it, they can see the previous ones, and then there's the subscribe thing. And I should clearly say that within the subscription, it includes 5 Monday moments.
Yeah. 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 I
Okay.
mean, and like, we don't want to overthink it also. So we can definitely get lost in the weeds of like what's optimal, but I think just getting people into your world and trusting that repetition it's going to do its magic, to where you just get somebody to listen to your show. Hit the subscribe button. If you love this interview, I do this every week. Come on over, be a part of our ecosystem here. And they start listening to episodes and they hear you mention 5 Monday moments, throughout, and just the repetition will do its work. So that's really the key thing, to where, where the link that you're pointing them to and the show notes and things like that, or what you're saying verbally. I'm a big fan of, like, when I do a call to action, I almost always, I can't even think of a time that I haven't just sent people directly to my homepage, because everything can be linked off my homepage. So
but
I was
you do
just
that verbally, right? You
yeah.
do that verbally, so they're listening, but they're not gonna. They haven't got a link, or they just write it down somewhere or do something. Is there a more sophisticated way of doing that?
Well, I mean, I say it verbally. So like at the end of this episode, I'll tell people if they want to sign up for a podcast audit, go to podcastingbusiness.school, but the link is also in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that could get me some more subscribers. 100, probably of the 100. I don't know that my metrics that well, but of the 100, probably, 50% are new. And they're not subscribing. So if they go to the website, to the homepage, and they see what they're going to subscribe, and when they subscribe, not only do they hear the past ones and the present ones, but they also can get this 5 Monday moments, which is validated by people that have been listening to it for 3 or 4 years, and it's great.
Yeah. And when we talk about lead magnets, I like a 2-pronged approach. In my mind, there's 2 different types of lead magnets, and the 5 Monday moments is what I call a quick win lead magnet, where that's the type of lead magnet. It's like a checklist. It's a PDF. Or some people do like mini courses or something like that. That's something that you could have 1,000 people subscribe into, and you can handle that volume. You can handle as many new people as possible. It's not limited by you having to do anything.
Yeah, let's call that a quick.
That's called a quick win lead magnet, and it's going to be a quick win for them too. So they get it on your 5 Monday moments. They're going to get a little quick burst of value out of that. A downloadable scorecard, a checklist. Those are all quick win. On the other side, the other prong is what I call an experience-based lead magnet. And I think you could do well with this too. So what we're doing here is what I consider an experience-based lead magnet. When I do you've been to PodPal Zoom parties, those are experience-based lead magnets. The price of admission is an email address. But I think you could do this. These work really well with guest-based shows, where maybe once per month of the last whatever day of the month, the last Friday of the month, or the last Tuesday of the month, you pick a day, but train your audience to know that on that day, this is when Bobby has his guest masterclass from one of the people that's been on the show before. Maybe it's a panel from several people that have been on the show, and people can maybe take a small group of 10 to 20 listeners and invite them in. Price of admission is an email address, and they can directly ask questions to this person or these people, and you're connecting them directly to that guest, where they can sit on Zoom and answer and do a little Q&A session. So like creating an access point basically for your audience.
That's something to think about. Don't forget, the people that I talk to, one's a Holocaust survivor, so he's not going to be on it. A lot of these people, they like talking because they get to there's levity, because I'm a comedian, and they get to talk about. They don't have any tools at the beginning, and by the end of it, they've got all these tools like watching fish tanks or journaling or using mood boards, and then all of a sudden they're happy, the audience is happy, and that's it. Now, Adam, the key is that mine's a lived experience. I'm 68 years old, and it's about somebody talking about it not from the medical perspective. So I want to tell you that I'm writing a book because it seems to me that anybody that gets into the higher podcasts, I got one here called Chatter That Matters, a guy named Tony Chapman, and it's sponsored by a bank and blah, blah, blah. But any guest has a book. So that's what I was really thinking of doing as more of as an experience-based lead magnet, which was allowing them an audible copy of the book.
Okay, that to me that would be more of a quick win lead magnet, because an experience-based lead magnet involves you talking to them directly.
Okay, well, that's going to be difficult with my guests.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be your guests too. Like it could be
experts.
It could be, yeah, it could be experts. It could be even just a connection point with you where you invite your audience, like what I do with Pod Pals. Like you've been to that, and you invite 5, 10 of your audience, your listeners on, and you create content together. And it's just Q&A with you. It's a round table. Maybe you just put a topic out there and go, this is what we're going to discuss. If you have questions about this, we're going to do a round table panel style discussion. And yeah, those are people that want to come deeper into your brand and support you, and those are potential donors for your when you open that up for your
now, I noticed you're using StreamYard. Is that the most optimum one to set up this, or is it just a Zoom, or is it just a Loom?
I think Zoom is fine. Like Zoom totally works. Like I like StreamYard for my live streaming and the branding, and you can kind of dress it up a little bit, but it's a perk. It's not a necessity, and hopefully StreamYard doesn't shut down my stream when I say that, but they're watching. But no,
so I got you. So basically a Zoom where they can key in and not necessarily if I have the last guest, but talk about the guests and talk a little bit about lived experience and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Open it up for your listeners to become a part of the show.
Okay. Like that's the cost to enter that is an email address.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be a slower build because maybe you have 5, 10, 15 people on there, but these are people that are super fans of you and your brand and your show. Like these are people that want to be a part of it. And like I said, those are really good relationships to build. Like you've been to several Pod Pals Zoom parties. You've come on a podcast Audit. I know you listen to my show and you're out there implementing stuff. And, I want to nurture as many of those relationships as I can.
Okay, good. So that's good. How much time do we have left?
We can fire away with 1 or 2 more questions, man. What do you want to dive into?
So the next thing is to be a guest on somebody's or to have a guest on your own. And quite frankly, both of those I've never really been able to get value out of them. I've been guest on a number of them, and I'm not having people come to see me. I've even had some people on your podcast that would be great fits, and I put stuff in the chat, but they never followed up.
Okay.
I don't have time to do pod match or all that stuff because I don't want to spend all my time just being on other people's podcasts if it isn't like a quick fix, like, hey, it's connected. I'm a guest. I talk. They're interested in me. They come to my site.
Yeah. Well, I think podcast guesting is a great opportunity, but you have to go into it really with a game plan. And like, it's definitely worth your time. It's one of the best ways to grow your brand, but you need to go into that with a very specific strategy. So let's go over some pointers on that. Like when you go in and you're a guest on someone else's show, you want to know kind of what their show is about. And what I'll do is I'll handpick a few of my episodes that I know those topics might come up, and I've got those episodes ready as a reference point. Because if I'm on someone else's show and we start talking about podcast names or podcast art, and I've got an episode about that, I'll we'll kind of wrap up the point of like, hey, and if you want to dive a little bit deeper, make sure you go to my show, Podcasting Business School, check out episode number 300, blah, blah, blah. And so I'll reference that episode. I'm giving them little fishing lines in the water to pull them back into my world, go, hey, go and check out episode whatever if this really hits home. And then we go over the next point. Oh yeah, I've got an episode on this too. It's episode whatever. And nobody does that in podcast guesting. And I don't know why, because I do it all the time. I do it when I speak on stage, same thing. And it just pulls people into your world, gives them episodes to start with. Instead of going, go to my website and listen to my show, I'm giving them specific episodes to listen to that reels them directly in.
And how hard should I go at? Because I mean, I get this stuff from some pod match or whatever every week, and I go through it. And I mean, if I wanted to, I could be a guest 5 times on other people's show. But interestingly enough, a lot of these people didn't prep. Like they just said, show up and we'll start talking. Like I prep, like I put 4 hours into these things before the guest comes on, and then we meet in the green room and all that stuff. So, I don't really want to just like show up and, before you know it, they're talking, and before you know it, there's all kinds of like trigger warnings and all that stuff on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's your call. Like if it's not your jam, it's not your jam. Some people don't like doing social media. I'm like, let's not do social media. If you don't like guesting on people's podcasts, you 100% don't have to do it. There's other ways.
I like it. I like it, but I like it to be a little bit more connectivity between I'm a guest, so therefore they're going to come and listen to me.
Yeah, well, everybody does it different. No, I can use me as an example. When I have somebody on my show, I make a few bullet point notes. I know what I want to talk to, but I don't do a green room. I spend probably less than 15 minutes researching, but I'm a seasoned interviewer. Like I've done 1,000 episodes. So, it's the individual experience will vary from show to show. And it's kind of like going over and you have dinner at somebody else's house. Sometimes you just kind of eat some of the food, even though it's not your favorite food, and you just do it to be polite. You eat those green beans, even though they're not your favorite thing, but you're just kind of being polite and you're kind of over. And then, the give back on that is like, if you scoop up some of that audience effectively, now, I mean, your audience can grow by leaps and bounds if you do this effectively and you're able to scoop people in and give them really strategic calls to action and give them a reason, give them more than one reason to want to come over and listen. Again, I think the specific episodes, I think that's the best route to go.
And what about the book idea? You think that's just a quick,
I mean, I think it's good. Like writing a book is a good thing. It's not my zone of genius. Like, I don't know if it'll help your podcast. I know your podcast will help with book sales and things like that. You can use to leverage.
I'm not looking to sell the book. I'm looking to do it as a lived experience. All of this is about tools, about stuff I enjoy. I stopped enjoying Sunset Bob, so I stopped that. And I mean, I enjoy this. The only reason I'm so good at it is because I enjoy it. But it can turn very quickly into something that you don't enjoy.
Yeah.
Let me ask you on the other side. I've been a guest. I've had guests on my podcast. And like I said, preamble is, by the way, you're expected to share this. And they don't. Or they don't know how to, or they just don't.
Yeah.
So how do you motivate them to share it?
Well, since you're a comedian, you could be really good at this. This is one of the best ideas I've ever had that I've never done, Bobby. So I'm going to leave it up to you. Here's what you do. You create a terrible looking social media post that makes them look terrible. And you show this to them and you go, listen, if you don't share it out, this is the terrible picture I'm using, and just hang it over their head.
How's that work?
I've never done that. I've always thought about it, like a threatening, like,
No.
Let's use AI and like give them a unibrow or something, or like let's make them look real silly. No, I mean, honestly, I think when I have a guest on my show, I'm realistic, and I realize that they are coming on my show to scoop up some of my audience and promote to my audience, and they're not doing it to be my marketing team and necessarily to promote to their show. So if you have a guest on and you don't see, if the only reason you're having them on is the hopes that they share it out,
No.
I probably wouldn't have them on as a guest. But like things like live streaming and stuff like that, that tends to work for the person that's probably not going to share it out. If you ask them to do a follow-up Facebook Live or LinkedIn Live or Instagram Live or whatever, and say, hey, the episode's going out on Tuesday, I would love to do a follow-up Q&A live stream on Wednesday, so my audience can ask you some questions. Would you be up for that? And that they will most likely do that, and then you can kind of dip into their audience a little bit. So that's one strategy that has worked for me in the past. That makes sense.
The other thing is that I use catchy titles, like the Holocaust survivor that was dyslexic and used dyslexia and problem solving to avoid being killed in the death camps. His episode was called "The Survivor from Irish Lake." So, do you think the titles of the episodes have to be more specific and not so cute?
I mean, we want them to be catchy. We want a nice balance of catchy with keywords. So keywords help with people searching Google or searching, like the different podcast player apps now, certain words can be searched and bring up episodes instead of shows. So that helps. But then also we want them catchy and intriguing enough that your already subscriber is like, ooh, need to check this out. So we want to have a nice little balance there. But what I would do is like, what's the catchy version of this? And then I'd think like, is there a search term that I could put in there to optimize it?
I don't think anybody's searching my website, my podcast. I think, I mean, I don't know. I'm not. I've been in SEO and all that. I don't think anybody's searching for podcast on mental health for lived experience from a comedian that's in its third season.
Correct, but people are putting the word mental health in the Apple Podcast search bar. And if they do that and then 20 shows pop up and they scroll through and they find your show and they may taste test it a little bit and be like, oh, this is a different flavor. This is something that I like. That's not some psychiatrist up there talking mental health, or maybe a bunch of the other shows are like mental health for
I got you.
Somebody else that's not you. And
I got you.
Yeah. So the key thing is you're in that space. You're in that mental health, personal development, personal growth space.
Yeah, wellness.
Yeah, and you want to be your own sub niche of that. So, Cool, man. Well, we've stirred up a ton of ideas here, Bobby. I think we got some stuff to work on. I want to make sure that you get to promote your website and social media, or if somebody wants to reach out and connect with you, tell them where they need to go, man.
Well, on the website's called Nomagicbullet.org, and I don't really have a social media presence right at this point, but there you can see all my the documentary, and you can see all my 28 episodes going back, and there's lots of interesting subjects and lots of interesting people. So if you want to see a Holocaust survivor, my last episode was a quadriplegic talking about his tools. And my next episode is somebody that just finished the Boston Marathon yesterday and ran the Tokyo Marathon and uses running as a tool to deal with addiction.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Bobby, appreciate you coming on. And for anybody out there, like I said before, if you want to do a podcast audit, heading over to the main website, www.podcastingbusiness.school. Hit the freebie button, get signed up, and join me for the show. And with that, my pod pals, I'm going to send you all out into the world, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Adam.